Antarctica is by far the most mysterious continent on Earth. With no permanent population, we know very little about this strange and barren landscape. But Antarctica is also home to some of the coldest temperatures imaginable. Today, we're exploring the coldest place in the world. The average annual temperature in Antarctica is negative 70 degrees Fahrenheit, but even on the frozen continent, there is a wide spectrum of temperatures. The coastal regions average a balmy 14 degrees Fahrenheit, and a frozen ice ridge of the East Antarctic Plateau between the summits Dome Argus and Dome Fuji measured an unbelievable temperature of negative 148 degrees Fahrenheit. This is officially the coldest temperature reading in the history of Earth, and some scientists believe it could not possibly get any colder. In 2013, a team of researchers used maps and weather patterns to explore how it gets so cold. Already, cold temperatures fall rapidly when the sky clears. If clear skies persist for a few days, the ground chills as it radiates its remaining heat into space. This creates a layer of super-chilled air above the surface of the snow and ice. This layer of air is denser than the relatively warmer air above it, which causes it to slide down the shallow slope of domes on the Antarctic plateau. As it flows into the pockets, it can be trapped and the cooling continues. By causing the air to be stationary for extended periods while continuing to radiate more heat away into space, you get the absolute lowest temperatures we're able to find, the lead researcher said. We suspected that we would be looking for one magical site that got extremely cold, but what we found was a large strip of Antarctica at high altitude that regularly reached these record low temperatures. After years of monitoring the site with satellites for new data, the researchers discovered that the area was even colder than they previously imagined. At the time, they believed it could only reach minus 133 Fahrenheit, but the new data indicated that during extremely specific conditions, the temperature could drop to the current world record low, minus 148 degrees. And this reading was not an outlier. Researchers found the same reading at more than 100 points across the plateau, indicating that it was widespread during the right conditions. The plateau sits at over 12,000 feet in elevation. This, combined with clear skies and no wind during the winter, make the perfect conditions for absolutely deadly cold. Because the conditions are so hyper-specific, scientists believe that it could not conceivably get colder on Earth. There's a limit to how long the conditions persist to allow it to cool to these ultra-low temperatures, and a limit to how much heat you can actually get through the atmosphere, because water vapor has to be almost non-existent in order to emit heat from the surface at these temperatures, the lead researcher said. Many people falsely assume that the South Pole is the coldest part of Antarctica, but in fact, the South Pole is at a much lower elevation than the East Antarctic Plateau, causing its temperature to stay relatively warm. The average temperature is minus 56 degrees, extremely cold by any other standard, but practically tropical in Antarctica. Though it appears to be a frozen wasteland, Antarctica is actually home to plentiful natural resources. The vast majority of the continent is coated in thick ice, making exploration difficult, but the resources are present all the same. For example, 90% of the world's freshwater ice and 70% of the total fresh water is stored on Antarctica. To put that into perspective, if even a single ice sheet were to melt, the Earth's oceans would rise by a whopping 16 feet. At the moment, Antarctica is mostly a hub for scientific research, rather than commercial projects. But through recent exploration, it is believed to contain large mineral deposits, primarily copper. Some also believe that Antarctica is home to large petroleum deposits, but no one has confirmed this fact. Due to the Antarctic Treaty, signed in 1959, no commercial mining is allowed on Antarctica. Allowing commerce on the continent would be extremely complicated due to the fact that no one formally owns Antarctica, and opening the area to commercial pursuits would lead to a land grab, and maybe even a proxy war among the world's many nations. For reference, Antarctica is split into two regions, East and West Antarctica. The East takes up about 2/3 of the barren continent and is roughly the size of Australia. Its extremely dry climate means that very little life can survive here. South polar skuas and snow patrols are occasionally seen when they are blown off course by strong winds. In 2000, it was reported that microbes had been detected living in the South Pole ice. Scientists published in the journal Gondwana Research that evidence had been found of dinosaurs with feathers to protect the animals from the extreme cold. The fossils had been found over 100 years ago in Coonawarra, Australia, but in sediment which had accumulated under a lake which had been near to the South Pole millions of years ago. Though most of the continent is coated in snow, there are parts of Antarctica that have been dubbed the driest place on Earth. An area called the Dry Valleys has seen no rain for nearly 2 million years. There is absolutely no precipitation in this region, and it makes up a 4,800 square kilometre region of almost no water, ice or snow. Though there are technically some small water features, they have not had any net gain or loss of water in over 2 million years. The similarity between terrain and nature with Mars' surface has allowed NASA to conduct experiments. It became the perfect place to test the high slopability of Viking spacecraft. The average thickness of Antarctic ice is about 1 mile deep, though it has been melting in recent years due to climate change. As the climate has warmed in the last 16 years, Antarctica has lost enough ice to fill Lake Michigan, according to results from a new NASA mission. Put another way, more than 5,000 gigatons of ice has melted. For reference, a gigaton equals 1 billion metric tons, or enough to fill 400,000 Olympic-sized swimming pools, which drove up sea levels around the world. In all likelihood, the coldest place on Earth will not be as frigid in the near future. So what are the other coldest places on Earth? For a long time, the coldest area was considered to be Vostok Research Center, also on Antarctica. The Russian-controlled station measured a temperature of minus 120 degrees in July 1983. This incomprehensibly low temperature held the record for several decades before the advent of satellite technology allowed scientists to take temperatures in even less hospitable places, like the East Antarctic Plateau. The third and fourth coldest temperatures were taken at the Amundsen Scott South Pole Station and the Dome Argus, both in Antarctica, with temperatures of minus 115 and minus 114 respectively. The coldest temperature recorded outside of Antarctica was taken on Denali, the highest peak in North America, located in Alaska. It registered a temperature of minus 100 degrees Fahrenheit. The climate of the interior of Alaska is best described as extreme and is the best example of a true subarctic climate, as the highest and lowest recorded temperatures in Alaska both have occurred in the interior. The same area measured a temperature of 100 degrees Fahrenheit, meaning it experienced a swing of 200 degrees, much greater than almost anywhere else on Earth. Denali sits at more than 20,100 feet above sea level, meaning that extreme weather patterns commonly form on its high escarpments. The Japan Alpine Club installed a meteorological station on a ridge near the summit of Denali at an elevation of 18,733 feet, which served to record some of the coldest temperatures in North America to date. Verkhoyansk, Russia, is the sixth coldest place on the planet with a record low of minus 94. There are only around 1,200 people living in Verkhoyansk as of now, while the number used to be double 15 years ago. People tend to abandon this place to search for better living conditions. Sickness is extremely common due to the brutal quality of life. Verkhoyansk is one of the most isolated towns in this region. There are no roads leading to this place. In winter, when the entire region has iced over, Verkhoyansk can be reached by following the course of the frozen Yana River, driving over the frozen marshes. In the summer, when the river has melted and the marshes have thawed, the only way to reach Verkhoyansk is by a helicopter. Residents spend the winter pretty much in hibernation, avoiding going outdoors as much as possible. Homes are heated by wood fire and hot water pumped from the central heating plant that runs around the clock, all throughout the winter. Those forced to go outside warm themselves with wood fires in roadside huts and by keeping car engines running. Schools remain closed, but only when the temperatures drop below minus 55 degrees Celsius. The rest of the top 10 coldest places on Earth are spread across the globe. 2 are in Greenland, while 1 is in Russia, and the last is in Canada. While they are unlikely to overtake the East Antarctic Plateau, life is definitely challenging in these remote and extreme locations. Regardless, the average person can be thankful that winter is not nearly as difficult in most populated areas.